Hello friends, welcome. I wanted to take a moment to walk you through my HSP scale and how I talk about content warnings in my videos. I am a highly sensitive person, which means that I feel things deeper and I take in a lot more stimuli. While I am so thankful for this gift and the way that I see the world, it does mean I have to be super careful with what content I consume. Let's get this party started. I think content warnings are very important because they can give me a picture of what I need to prepare myself for when I go about reading that book. I've also found that lists of content warnings don't always help. They don't always give me an idea of how prevalent the content warnings are going to be in the book. In all my videos, I will strive to have a list of the content warnings in the description, and I'll kind of talk about them when I'm talking about the books. But in that description, I'll make sure to mention things like mild or moderate, graphic or not graphic. So to give you an idea of how prevalent these items are to the overall theme of the book. I do not believe that content warnings are spoilers. They can make or break whether a book will be safe or unsafe for me. I want to also acknowledge that there's a difference between being uncomfortable and being unsafe. For example, you may be uncomfortable reading about experience of a Black person in America because it means you have to examine your own privilege, but that's different from me feeling unsafe having to read a graphic description of police brutality, for example. Okay, so that's how I handle content warnings. Let's talk about my special HSP scale. I wanted there to be another way for me to relate to you all how I reacted to a book and kind of explain how I may feel I might be activated depending on the content warnings. The scale is safe, mild, moderate, and unsafe. I will use this scale when I talk about all the books that I talk about in my videos. And right now I'm going to go through each one, explain how I would categorize those books, and talk a little bit about the genres that might fall into those categories for me. So the first one, safe, is pretty self-explanatory. This is when there are no content warnings or the content warnings are very much in the background of the overarching theme, or the age range for the book is much less intense. So genres that fall automatically into the safe category usually are YA contemporary and middle grade that I might reread. Mild is just a step up. It's very similar to safe, but maybe some of the content warnings are just a little bit more intense. So an example of this kind of would be if a book had a content warning for bullying that was mild, that might mean that there's a character who talks about that they were bullied in middle school, but we don't have to experience that bullying firsthand or delve into the feelings around that experience. The genres that are in this category are much the same as the safe category, but sometimes there are fantasy or sci-fi that might fall into this category. Moderate is when things become more intense. This is when content warnings are much more a part of the overarching theme. An example of this would be with the bullying example, and that would mean in a moderate book that there was much more description or we dive into the feelings around that yucky situation. Genres that can be in moderate can be anything, but usually for me it's fantasy, sci-fi, and realistic fiction and nonfiction, especially if they're dealing with hard topics such as racism and etc. For this category, I do find myself skimming to protect myself, especially if this book deals with something that I don't want to relive or would be re-traumatizing. Or it's like a fantasy with some battle scenes that I might be more careful around. I try to avoid some moderate books, but some are okay for me. Unsafe is pretty self-explanatory. The content warnings are the themes and empower the story. The genres that automatically fall into this category are horror, thriller, and some murder mysteries. But fantasy and realistic fiction can also fall into this category. These are books I DNF because they bother me or I have a panic attack because of them. We don't like unsafe books. Hopefully this video was helpful for you to understand how I rate and categorize the books I read and want to read. I want to make sure we all have safe and happy reading experiences, so I really hope that I can share how I rate books to help others. Let me know down in the comments how you choose your books or what are your top safe genres. Please be kind and anti-racist in my comment section, especially around being highly sensitive persons. Being an HSP is a spectrum and we all have different ways of understanding. I am only speaking from my truth. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you in my next video. In the meantime, keep resisting, resting, and finding joy. Goodbye for now.